Wow. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good night. Today is a unique day. We are here once again for God to use us mightily so that we'll be able to empower others. I need to appreciate everyone that are on stage now. We're about starting. You can see the slide there. Yes, managing conflicts for mission. There is a purpose why this is being done. We need to manage conflict. Conflict is always here and there. Everywhere there's conflict, there's commotion. But we need to know today, before the end of today, we will know how to manage our conflicts so that every one of us will be happy. We want to be happy. You can see the first and second slide telling us about myself as the Vice Chancellor. I need to thank God. And we see now managing conflict for mission. Yes, we want everybody to be happy. So we must manage our conflict very well. Yes. And slide 3 now. Slide 3, we need to pray that God will bless us. How do we start our prayer? By calling upon our God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit to perfect his work for us. Prayer for humility. Oh Father, give us the humility which realizes its ignorance, admits its mistake, recognizes its needs, welcomes advice, accept rebuke. Help us always to praise rather than to criticize, to sympathize rather than to discourage, to build rather than to destroy, and to think of people at their best rather than at their worst. This we ask for the name's sake. Amen. And we know in slide 5 now we have expectation. Yes, we have 1 or 2 expectations. Yeah, the course of this of our topic of our discussion, you may have 1 or 2 questions. Like a question I would like to answer is, maybe you want us to answer social question from the topic, or you the one you have within you. You can put it on the chat box. You are free to use the chat box. Also, I would like to know more about what you want to know. Put it on the chat box too. And your major interest is this. Put it on the chat box. As you do that, I am telling you, before the end of today's topic, we will all be happy together. We'll go to slide 6. Slide 6 tells us about the learning objectives. We are going to identify the focus and the sources of conflict in our life, in our institution, in our groups, in our workplace. We're also going to learn 5 conflict management strategies and when to use them. We're also going to list and practice the 4 phases of collaborative problem solving. Yes, you may have 1 or 2 things you want to say. Put it on the chat box concerning what you have just said. But these are the objectives, the learning objectives we're going to have today. As we all know, conflict gives people a lot of stress. Unresolved conflict brings more stress. It will also appear in 1 interpersonal relationship. Diagnose what type of conflict you have. Most effective one is always the appropriate, the most appropriate one, and collaborative. Lots of time will be used. So these are the things. We'll go to slide 7 to know the nature of interpersonal conflicts. Yes, the nature of interpersonal conflict we are going to look at. We're also going to deal with effective, we are going to dealing effectively with interpersonal conflicts. Also, we are going to talk about resolving interpersonal conflict through collaboration. As we all know, collaboration is so important. So these are the things we are going to look at. In slide 8, let's look at slide 8. Slide 8 talks about myself, academic senior professor, Dr. Chaplain General, a warrior of Charles. By the special grace of God, I have more than 30 years experience as a professor, I need to thank God for the grace he has given me. Some of the courses I did, so many of them, but I need to thank God for the opportunity. It's a privilege, an unmerited privilege. I never merit it, but God had to give me fit so as to be able to use it to empower people. The same thing. Some of you, maybe you have one or two things concerning your experience and education, you can as well enlighten them on the chat box. God will help us. We go to slide 9. Slide 9, we are going to look at the methodologies. The methodology we are going to use. We are going to interactive. It's going to be interactive learning. Interactive in the sense that I need you to put one or two things on the chat box so that we discuss it together, like expectations, your needs, your activities. And it's going to be a shared responsibility for learning. And it's going to be 40-60. 40 from me, 60 from you for instruction and facilitating. 60 in the sense that you maybe some of your questions you have, I like that there, so I will be able to treat it if we have time. Also, we're going to look at the problem-solving approach. Yes, so problem-solving approach. Just take note of all this. And if you have any question, any query, put it on the chat box. And at the end of the period, if there is time, we're going to treat it together. We'll go to slide 10. Slide 10 talks about the rules of the group. The rules of the group. Keep beginners' minds. Yes, we are all beginners. We are all learning. Irrespective of our qualification, we are learners. That's why we should learn every day. So we should assume as if we never have any experience so that we can grab this very well and add it to our own experience. Remember freedom to choose. Use opportunity to learn from each other. Peer learning. Observe and modern training etiquettes. Like phone, punctuality is very good. Phones, be very careful using your phone so that you will not miss any of the topics. Enjoy and have fun. It's very important. We'll go to the next slide, slide 11. Talks about the review and conclusion. The questions, if you have any question, any contribution, any clarification, yes, we are here to at least to give justice to it. If you have any, just put it on the chat box. We're going to treat any question you have from what I've said so far. Just write it on the chat box. We look at slide 12, the nature of interpersonal conflicts. Just as I asked you to write on the chat box, we want to treat now. The nature of interpersonal conflicts is very important. Put it on the chat box. If you have any issue concerning any question, just write it there. Be able to treat it. But one thing I want you to know is the next slide. By the time you are able to master the next slide, I am telling you we are done. Diagnostic survey for managing conflicts. That's the next slide. Diagnostic survey for managing conflicts. What do we actually mean by this? Before you read this chapter, respond to the following statement by writing a number from the rating scale that follows in the left-hand column. Yes, your answer should reflect your attitude and behavior as they are now, not as you would like to be. Be honest about this. This instrument is designed to help you discover your level of competence in managing conflict so you can tailor your learning to your specific need. When you have completed the survey, use the scoring key at the end of the chapter to identify the skill areas discussed in this chapter that are most important for you to master from this survey. And step 2 of the survey, which you need to take note of, after you have completed the reading and the exercise in this chapter, and ideally, as many of the skill application assignment at the end of this chapter as you can, cover up your first set of answer, then respond to the same statement again. This time is the right-hand column, which is called post-assessment. When you have completed the survey, use the scoring key at the end of the chapter to measure your progress. If your score remains low in specific skill area, use the behavioral guideline at the end of the skill learning section to guide your further practice. The rating, as we all know, is if you rate yourself as 1, you strongly disagree. If you rate yourself as 2, you disagree. If you rate yourself as 3, slightly disagree. As 4 points or scale 4, slightly agree. And scale 5, your rating, you agreed. And scale 6, you strongly agreed. What are the assessments? We look at it at scale, the next slide, slide 14, the assessments. Slide 14, the assessments. We're going to look at the area. When I see someone doing something that needs correcting, you see somebody doing something correct, what do you do? 1, avoid making personal accusation and attributing self-serving motive to the other person. Look at, you score yourself now. Do you strongly believe? Do you strongly agree? Do you strongly disagree? You score yourself on this point. Do you agree? Do you slightly agree? Do you slightly agree? Disagree? Do you agree? Do you strongly agree? I repeat that one again. I avoid making personal accusation and attributing self-serving motive to the other person. 2, when stating my concern, I present them as my problem. 3, I succinctly describe problem in terms of behavior that occur, its consequences, and my feeling about it. 4, I specify the expectations and standards that have been violated. 5, I make a specific request detailing a more acceptable option. 6, I persist in explaining my point of view until it is understood by the other person. 7, I encourage two-way interaction by inviting the respondent to express his or her perspective and ask questions. 8, when there are several concerns, I approach the issue incrementally, starting with easy and simple issue, and then progress to those that are difficult and complex. 9, I look for our common area of agreements. 10, I show genuine concern and interest even when I disagree. 11, I avoid justifying my action and becoming defensive. 12, I seek additional information by asking questions that provide specific and descriptive information. 13, I focus on one issue at a time. We look at the next slide, slide 15. When someone complains about something I have done, I find some aspect of the complaint with which I can agree. 15, of action. When two people are in conflict. 17, acknowledge that conflict exists and treat it as serious and important. 18, I help create an agenda for problem-solving meeting by identifying the issue to be discussed one at a time. 19, I do not take sides, but remain neutral. 20, I help focus the discussion, the impact of the conflict on work performance. 21, I keep focus the discussion on the impact of the conflict on work performance. 22, I make certain that neither party dominates the conversation. 23, I help the parties generate multiple alternatives. The last one, I help the parties find area on which they agree. We go to the next slide, which is managing interpersonal conflicts. Managing interpersonal conflicts. The scoring key. From what you have said, from 1 to 24, the key area is, there are three things that are skill area there. Initiating a complaint. 1. 2, responding to what? A criticism. 3, mediating a conflict. Mediating a conflict. From the itemized assessments, there are 24. We can now see number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of those questions. We said the other time, because there were about 24 questions, are measuring on initiating a complaint. While from 9 to 16, responding to a criticism, you respond. Those questions you see, we saw the other time. While from 17 to 24, you are mediating a conflict. So looking at that, we can now, whatever question we have to say concerning this key area, because we are going to ask a question, there will be a question. There are three skill areas you must take note of. Initiating a complaint, yes, and responding to criticism, and also mediating. When you need to, somebody must mediate a conflict, somebody must respond, and someone must initiate. These are the three skills. So when being asked, there will be a time when we ask that question, want to see those who are actually following. Take note of that. So let us look at slide 17. The next one, the strategies for handling conflicts. The strategy of what? Handling conflicts. What are the strategies? We're going to know at the end of the period. But let us take this survey to see the area we fall in, so as to be able to answer the question we are going to ask earlier. So let us take note of it. Okay, slide 17, as I said, strategy for handling conflicts. Indicate how often you use each of the following by writing the appropriate number in the blank. Choose a number from a scale of 1 to 5, with number 1 being really, that is 1. Whereas if you take 3, being sometimes. But when you take scale 5, then it means always, you are doing it always, you score yourself. So we have 0.1, 3, 5. 0.1 is you are being really doing the act, which I'm going to ask in your assessment. When you take 3, you score 3 points. When you do it sometimes, you score 5 points when you do it always. So take note of those points. You have 0.1, you have 0.3, and you have 0.5. 0.1 is you really do it. 0.3 is what? Sometimes. 0.5 is what? Always. You score yourself there. So these are the questions. These are the assessments. After you have completed the survey, use the scoring scale key at the end of the chapter to tabulate your results. Number 1, I argue my position tenaciously. I argue it. So score yourself now. Is it really you do it or sometimes, or you do it always? 2, I put the needs of others above my own. Score yourself. 1, 3, and 5. Really, sometimes, or always? 3, I arrive at a compromise both parties can accept. Score yourself. 4, I don't get involved in conflicts. Score yourself. Is it really? Is it sometimes? Is it always? Score yourself. 5, I investigate issue thoroughly and jointly. Score yourself now. 6, I find fault in other person's position. 7, I foster harmony. You score yourself. Is it really you do it? It's sometimes or always? 8, I negotiate to get a portion of what I propose. I negotiate it. Score yourself. 9, I avoid open discussion of controversial subjects. 10, I openly share information with others. in resolving disagreements. 11, I enjoy winning an argument. Scholar says, is it really you do it or sometimes or always? 12, I go along with suggestion of others. 13, I look for a middle ground to resolve disagreements. 14, I keep my true feelings to myself to avoid hard feelings. The next slide, slide 18. I encourage the other sharing of concern and issues. 16, I am reluctant to admit I am wrong. The next slide. I try to help others avoid losing face in disagreements. 18, I stress the advantage of give and take. Assessment 19, I encourage others to take the lead in resolving controversy. The last one, I state my position as only one point of view. I state my position as only one point of view. So let us look at the next slide, which is, you score yourself, you know what you have gotten from there. Okay, we are still going to look at slide 19, the next slide. We are finished on this slide, slide 19, which is the next one, the strategy for handling conflicts. The strategy for handling conflicts. Yes, what are the strategies? We have so many strategies. We have about 5 strategies. Take note of them. We're going to ask you: forcing, accommodating, compromising, avoiding, and integrating. Look at that. So from what we have said, from 1 to 20, we have analyzed. Let us look at the area of the assessment are forcing, which of the assessment are accommodating, which of them are compromising, which of them are avoiding, which of them are integrating. Okay, looking at it now, we can see from the question we've asked from 1 to 20, from 5, 10, 19, 15, 20, shows that you are integrating. You integrate. You are integrating. When you look at that from 1 to 20, when you look at point 4, assessment 4, 9, 14, and 19, shows that you are avoiding. Why? From the assessment number 3, 8, 13, 18, shows that you are compromising. Why the assessment 2, 7, 12, 17 shows that you are accommodating. The assessment 1, 6, 11, 16 shows that you are forcing. Look at that. By the time you do that now, you now analyze it to see the number you have scored from all this area. So having done that, we'll go to the next slide, which is slide 20. Slide 20. Slide 20. We look at in this one, we're going to know what skill practice exercise for resolving interpersonal disputes. I told you earlier to note the area, the strategy to handle conflicts. What are the strategy like? Forcing, accommodating, compromising, avoiding, and integrating. These are the 5 areas to handle conflicts. So this time around, we want to look at the skill, and so this is an exercise. Those who, just like I said earlier, when you are resolving an issue, you must have somebody to initiate it. You must have somebody to respond to that criticism. You must have somebody to mediate on the conflicts. So this area now, we want to look at who is an initiator, who is a respondent, and who is a mediator. That is what we are going to look at now. The next slide, that's what we are going to look at now. So you are going to rate yourself as 1. If what we are going to say is low, you put 1. You score 1. If it is high, you score 5. So we are going to practicalize it now. So as an initiator, what do you do as an initiator? You tell your, if you say low, you don't do as expected. You say low, you don't do it much. But if you are doing it as you are initiating it, you are being an initiator, you say high, you score yourself 5. So as an initiator, 1, maintain personal ownership of the problem, including findings. Do you do that? Do you score high in that area or low? You score yourself 1 or 5. As an initiator, avoided many accusations and attributing motive stuck to the facts. You are always looking at the facts. You avoid making any argument. You even contributing. You look at the motive, the facts. You look at the facts. Score yourself. Is it of high level or low level? Succinctly describe the problem and behavior, outcome, and feeling. You describe it very well. Do you do that? You describe the problem very well. You find the outcome and the feelings. If you do, you score yourself 5. If it is not, you score yourself 1. Persistence until understood. You keep on persisting. Since you have initiated it, the person must understand it before you now do what? You now stop. You score yourself. If you are doing it, score yourself 5. If you are not doing it, score yourself 1, low. Also, encourage two-way interaction. If you do it, you score yourself 5. If no, say low, you score yourself 1. Approach multiple issues incrementally. 1, proceed from simple to complex, easy to hard. So when you are approaching issue, do you do it to make the person the simple one, not to approach the issue on a higher rate, to make the person scare away, instead of starting from the simple before you go to the hard one? If you do, you score yourself 5. But if you are not doing that one, you are starting from the high, not the low, not the simple, then score yourself low. Okay. Appeal to what the disputants had in common. That is to say, the other person that is disputing that fact, do you do it? Do you appeal to them? Do you do the appealing in the area of goals, principle, and constraints? Do you do those things? If you do, you score yourself high as 5. If you don't, score yourself 1. Also, as an initiator, you made a specific request for change. So if you see that they are now fighting, they are having do you do any specific request for change? If yes, you score yourself 5. If no, score yourself 1. So look at what you have scored so far. By the time we finish this exercise, you go and score yourself again, and maybe you will now know what you should do so as to make sure that there's peace generally. So as a respondent, what do you do as a respondent? We are finished with as an initiator. You initiate it. You score yourself. You've gotten what you have seen from the topic. I mean, from the assessment. Let us look at as a respondent. What do you do? 1, establish a climate for joint problem solving. Do you do that as a respondent? If yes, you score yourself 5. If no, score yourself 1. Show genuine concern and interest. When you are citing the matter, do you show genuine concern or interest? You score yourself either 1, which is low, or you score yourself 5, high. As a respondent, you respond appropriately to the initiator emotion. Do you do that? Since the initiator is here, do you actually respond appropriately to what you have initiated emotionally? The next one, avoid making defensive and overreacting. Avoid making defensive and overreacting. If actually you avoid, you score yourself high. If you don't avoid it, you want to react, you want to do, make sure that what yours is considered, you score yourself low as 1. Sought additional information about the problem. You sought additional information about it. You have seen a problem as a respondent. What do? Do you sought additional information about the problem? The shift general to specific, evaluate to descriptive. When you are evaluating it, you start the evaluation from evaluation to descriptive, or shift general. You talk on general before you are now specific. You don't talk an issue or call. You start speaking specific, or you go generally before you now be specific to that person. If you do that, you score yourself either 5 or 1. Focus on one issue at a time. Focus on one issue at a time. Gradually broaden the scope of the discussion. Search for integrative solution. If you do that, you score yourself high. If not, low. Agree with some aspect of the complaint. That is the facts. You agree with the fact, the perception, the feelings, and the principles. If actually you agree, you score yourself. The next one is propose a specific plan of action. Now, as a respondent now, do you propose a specific plan of action? You score yourself. We'll go to the next slide, mediator. As a mediator now, we have finished on initiator, on respondent. We now look at the mediator. As a mediator, your assessment is this: acknowledge that a conflict exists. Treat the conflict and disputant seriously. If you do that, you score yourself. As a mediator, break down complex issue, separated the critical from the paraphrase, beginning with a relatively easy problem. Do you start from looking at it in a small way, or you just move ahead? You score yourself. Yes. You help disputants avoid enriched position by exploring underlying interests. Remain neutral as a facilitator, not judge, and impartial towards issues and disputants. Kept the interaction issue oriented, e.g., pointing out the effects of the conflicts on performance. Make sure that neither party dominates conversation. Ask questions to maintain balance. Keep conflicts in perspective by emphasizing area of agreements. Help generate multiple alternatives drawn from common goal, value, and principles. Make sure that both parties are satisfied and committed to propose resolution. Now, slide 22. Having looked at those areas, go to the next slide, 22. In that 22, what are we looking at? So, being able to survey yourself, score yourself, I am telling you, you'll be able to answer the question we are going to look at, because we have explained everything we are going to do. Now, we want it practical now. The theoretical aspect is what we have just said. From slide 22, you will now be seeing the practical one now. Question will be asked. So I will advise us to put it on the chat box. What are those questions like? One, we are going to look at what are the strongest and weakness skill area you have. What are they? You have we have seen the theoretical part of it. We have surveyed all those areas. You have scored yourself. So now, what are your strongest weakness skill areas you have? So we're going to look at slide 23. Go to slide 23. So write it down on chat box. That question I asked on that is scoring your diagnostic survey. So from what is assessment, tell us your strongest skill area and tell us your weakness skill areas. So write it on the chat board. Let us know. So now, we will now explain. But before I want us to assess within us what we know about conflict. Your own personal area. Tell us what is conflict. But meanwhile, we have shown it for you to know. So I will just go further. But meanwhile, just write your own aspect. Don't look at my own, because we have shown it there. So when we define conflict, what do we actually mean? An open clash between two opposing group or individual. An open clash. Look at that. Between two opposing group or individual. Opposition between two simultaneous but incompatible feelings. Look at that. A hostile meeting of opposing military forces in the course of a war. That is conflict. A state of opposition between people or ideas or interests. That is conflict. An incompatibility of dates and events. conflict, a disagreement or argument about something important. So how do we manage conflict? How do you think you can manage this conflict? How do you think you can manage it? So write it on the chat box. How can you manage it? We have discussed it on the survey, but write it within on the chat box. How do you manage this conflict? We have seen what the conflict is all about. Conflict is about an open clash between two opposing group or individual. And conflict is a state of opposition between persons or ideas or interests. So what is conflict management? What can you say about conflict management? So because of time, I don't need to waste time. I need to go the next slide now. Slide 24. Slide 24 will now tell us that conflict management, this is the practice of identifying and handling conflict in a sensible, fair, and efficient manner. Look at that, in a sensible, fair, and efficient manner. You need to apply wisdom in managing conflicts. You need to be sensible, you need to be fair, you need to be efficient. Conflict management requires such skills as effective communicating, problem solving, negotiating with a focus on interest. You focus on interest. Look at that. We go to the next slide, slide 25, personal reflection. We now reflect on what we have said so far. Reflect and write down instances of conflicts with oneself. So write down within you the conflict you have experienced with yourself. Write it down on the chat box. The conflict you have experienced with authorities where you are working with. Write it on the chat box. And also the conflict you have experienced with close collaborators and a team. Write it on the chat box. The conflict you have also experienced with your members, with your colleagues, with your organization, with individual. Put it on the chat box. Let us look at it objectively. What were the causes of this conflict? What actually is the cause? What are the causes of those conflicts? How did you feel about them? How did you feel about them? Put it on the chat box. Are conflict healthy or unhealthy? It's a question now. Share what you feel comfortable. Share in the forum, on the chat box. State it there, write it there. These questions that have been asked. I repeat again. Reflect and write down instances of conflict with oneself, authority, close collaborator, team, members, between organizations, between individuals, between members. What were the causes of these conflicts? How did you feel about them? Are conflict healthy or unhealthy? So share it. And I want us to know, or probably I ask the question, what are the impacts of conflict? What do you think? What are the impacts? Put it on the chat box. The impact you feel that conflict may result to. What are the impacts? What do you think can result to? And how are you going to handle them? Put it on the chat box. We are going to discuss it together. Meanwhile, look at my own area, slide 23. Slide 23. We have two types of conflicts. We have the negative impacts. Impact of conflict, negative impact, and we have a positive impact. What are the negative impacts? It talks about stress and anxiety. These are negative impacts. 2, lower morale. When somebody is trying to lower your morale, look at that, negative impacts. Introduce a climate of mistrust. Look at that when mistrust comes. These are the negative impacts. Hinders teamwork when there are negative impacts. And can increase staff turnover. You see people leave in the group, people will not be working, those are the negative impacts. And what are the positive impacts? The positive of conflict is this: access to a broadening range of ideas. Look at that, ideas will be coming, the organization will be growing, opportunity to change and check absorption, opportunity to challenges. A lot of challenges will be coming and you'll be handling them. 3, increased participation. You see people will be happy doing the work because of the being positive. You see, and also higher creativity. It gives higher creativity, positive impact of conflicts. We don't say you should not fight, you should not have quarrel, But when you quarrel, when you fight, at least you should be able to agree within yourself and move. Because why do I conflict? It's ability to manage it. When you manage it well, what are the management you need to put? By being positive in it, don't look at the negative aspect of it. By the time you are looking at the negative aspect, I am telling you, the organization will just there will be problem. But we don't want problem. Any given organization, the shareholders or the executive, the management, they don't want anything to hinder the growth of the organization. That's why they created that organization. But for you to now come and scatter the organization, it doesn't speak well. It shows that you don't have interest of the organization. That is why the positive part, in spite of the conflict, you handle it, manage it. By the time you manage it well, I am telling you, everybody will be happy. You yourself will be fulfilled. So let us go to the next slide, slide 27. We look at the relationship between conflict and outcome. The conflict between, there's a stage that conflict will reach, that before you know, positive will move up. By the time you know, it start coming down. If you don't manage it well. When you are managing it well, the positivity you'll be seeing, you'll be happy. By the time you are not still handling it, you just see it coming down, bam. Would you just drop, bam. A negative aspect of it again, you see a lot of commotion, a lot of problem. Conflict that is not well managed is conflict, well managed. Conflict that is not well managed is conflict. But conflict that is well managed is not conflict because it's well managed. But conflict that is not well managed, that is where it becomes conflict. So when we have conflict within ourselves or within the organization, let us manage it well by interacting with ourselves, making ourselves happy, having voice our mind. These are the things you move further and remove it from your mind so that you will not commit sin and offend God. Because it brings sickness, it brings diseases, it brings a lot of things. If you put things in your mind, if you are having misunderstanding with people, you have to have, but manage it well, reconcile, and don't put it as something that will disturb your work, disturb your growth, your personality, disturb you to be having headache, having pains, being bitter. No, it doesn't speak well. It will make you to look as if you are not effective, whereas you are effective only because you have seen all those problems around. That's why it's not. So when they are around, manage it well, and God will help us. Conflict is only bad when the level is bad. When the level is bad, it's bad. You know, there is an optimal level when it goes beyond it's now stressful. If there is no conflict, no creativity, no innovative, there must be conflict. So when conflict comes, manage it well, by being positive, so that at least it do not affect or cause a lot of commotion that will make the management to look at they are not getting results as expected because we've not been able to manage it well. So let us manage our conflict very well, and our outcome will be increased. By the time we don't manage it very well, it will do what? It will just drop, bam, to go down. So let us manage it well. So we look at the next slide, slide 28, types of conflicts. We have types of conflict. We have about 4 types of conflicts. What are the types? And we should focus on the issue, not on the people. When we are having conflict, we should do what? We should focus on the people, on the issue, not on the people. Because some of us will have issue, we focus on the people instead of focusing on the issue, but on the people. No. If you focus on the people, the work will not go. Focus on that issue. What you are actually saying. Maybe punctuality. People are not coming. People are coming late. Not because you have so person, Mr. A, as your enemy, as your friend, because he came late. You want to now punish him. Yes, it's an opportunity for me to hook him. No, you don't do that. A day will come, you also come late. So let us look at the issue, punctuality. Let us not put any personal something into it, but let us look at it, the issue itself. So what are the sources of conflict? We have personal differences, we have informational differences, we have incompatible roles, and we have the environmental stress. These are the sources of conflict we have. And the issue, or what are we focusing on? We should not focus, we are focusing on the issue and the people, but let us do more of the issue than the people. So rule of engagement, different facts from opinion. Different facts from opinion. You look at the facts. Agree on the goal is necessary. Break yourself to the level of the people. Remove issue without forcing. Remove issue without forcing or forcing. When there is no time, yes, we do what? Will not be worthy, in the sense will not work, in the sense that when somebody dies, issue must be treated. So in that area, we'll take it up, resolve issue without forcing. So these are the things we should take note of. We'll go to the slide 23. Because of time, we won't be able to stress it more. Look at slide 20, the next slide. We look at the people focus and the issue focus. Issue focus and the people focus. Yes, just on two focuses. We focus on the people and focus on the issue. But when you focus on the people, it's difficult to reason or to resolve. It's very difficult when you are focused on the people. So don't focus on the people. And when we are focused on the issue, it reframe it to be more focused. You see, you are focused on the people or the issue. It reframe it to be more focused. But when you are focusing on the people, it's difficult to resolve. You just be breaking because you have your good candidates. You won't be. So we don't focus on the people, but we focus on the issue. When the issue comes, you reframe it. If it's a negative, or you reframe it to a positive. But the people now, you can't reframe. You be on one side. So you don't look at that area of the people, but focus on the issue each time you are doing. People focus in your face confrontation in which emotion are foiled by moral indignation, while the issue focus negotiation in which participants agree how to allocate resources, scarce resources. We know the resources are scarce. We now agree, we negotiate how we are going to manage it, allocate it. But out of a people focus, we look at the moral integration, indignation. That's what we look at. We don't look at, that is why we must be just. We must be just, we must be fair. Equity will not come in. We don't look, that's why we don't need to focus on the people, but focus on the issue. With the issue, you negotiate, you agree, and you allocate resources, how we are going to do it so that everybody will be happy. So look at the next slide, slide 30. 4 sources of interpersonal conflict, four sources of interpersonal conflict. The personal differences, just like we said the other time. When we talk of the next slide, when we talk of personal differences, we are looking at the conflict stem from personal level, yes, and needs. When we are looking at the informational differences or deficiency, we are looking at the conflict involved from misinformation. The next slide, from misinformation and misunderstanding. Look at that. For information, might be somebody must have given a wrong information concerning that issue, or there's a misunderstanding. That is what we look at, the informational deficiency. Fairly easy to resolve. Yes, like it's very, very fairly easy to resolve. And also incompatibility. When we are looking at the role incompatibility, we are looking at the conflict from the perception that assign goal and responsibility competes with those of others. The next slide. We also look at environmentally induced stress. When we look at the environmental induced stress, we are looking at the result from the stressful events of the organizational environment. Because of time factor, let me just rush it so that we'll be able to finish on time. Also, we look at our discussion now, slide 31. We'll not look at the discussion. What are the discussion? You put in our discussion, put it on the chat box. I'm going to discuss. In your opinion, what is the focus of the majority of conflict in your institute or group? From what you have discussed so far, what, in your opinion, what are the focus of the majority of conflict in your institution or group? Put it on the chat box. Categorize your previous lists into the source of the conflict. The source of the conflict. Reflect on it. Different thing. You reflect on that one. Whatever answer you get, put it on the chat box. We'll go to the next slide. We look at review and conclusion. In review and conclusion, there we look at the clarification, we look at the question, we look at the contribution. If you have any question concerning what we have said so far, no problem. If you have any question, you have any contribution, put it on the chat box. Put it on the chat box. We look at slide 33, the next slide. Slide 33, we look at the dealing effectively with interpersonal conflict. Dealing effectively with interpersonal, that's what we are going to look at. How do we deal interpersonal effectively with interpersonal conflict. How do we do it? The next slide, how do we do? We are finished on this slide. The next slide is dealing effectively with interpersonal conflicts. Interpersonal conflict. What do we do here? Yes, think and share. Think and share. So these are the areas, these are the things you need to look at. Have you ever been in a serious conflict with someone in your institution or organization? How did you resolve it? How did you write it on the chat box? How do you resolve it? Can share. Have you ever been in a serious conflict with someone in your institution or organization? How did you resolve it? Go to the next slide. Conflict resolution. Conflict resolution. You know, the other time we are talking about the survey. How do we suggestion to resolve conflict? We discuss on that. We want to apply it here now. I said we have forcing, we have collaborating, we have compromising, we have avoidance, and we have accommodating. Now I want to resolve that conflict. The next slide, we look at conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is the topic. Conflict, we are finished on this slide. Conflict resolution. The importance of relationship. The next slide, with the importance of relationship. Yeah, this is where we are now. Importance of relationship. Look at that. We can now see that we may measure, when you look at this very well critically, you can now see that in a situation whereby you have assertive. When you say assertive, is a way of you use force. How forceful you are on a particular issue. How forceful you are. Why you are not forceful? When you say unassertive, that is you are not forceful. You are not forceful. And when you look at this area, this chart now, you now see that those who are forceful, what do they use? They use assertive and what? And also use what? Cooperative, as in uncooperative. They are forceful and they are uncooperative. You can see the area of forcefulness when you are not cooperative and you are assertive. The area of compromising, you are in the middle. That means you are in the middle. You are in the middle area. You are compromising. But when you look at the area of collaborating, you see that you are assertive and at the same time you are cooperative. But the area of uncooperative, you are assertive and you are not cooperative. That is, you are forcefully doing it. Forcefully. When you are collaborating, you are assertive and at the same time you are cooperating. That shows you are collaborating. When you look at the area of accommodating, you are being dormant. Dormant in the sense that you are not assertive. You are not assertive, and at the same time you are cooperative. You are being dormant. And most people use that area, that being dormant. You will not do anything. They want you to accommodate them, but you need to take the grace of God to always. But it's good to do it, but not all the time, so that we will not know you and use that opportunity on you. These are the things you need to take note of. So we need to thank God for this. So we'll go to the next slide so that because of time factor, approaches and objective. We are finished on this. Approach. The next one, approaches and objective. Approaches and objective. What are we looking at this area? We are looking at when you are being forcing, you do what? To get your way. You want to get your way, you use force. You got to get your way. Is it the best? Avoiding. You want to avoid having to deal with the conflict. You want to avoid it. Doesn't look well. Compromising. Reach an agreement quickly. You want to reach the next slide. You want to reach an agreement quickly. When you are accommodating, you don't upset the other person. You accommodate. You don't upset the other person. The next slide. You don't what? You don't do what? Upset the other person. But when you are collaborating, solving the problem together, and which is the best, it's always good you solve the problem together. Make a big test rather than you now want to cause commotion. No, the person will be happy, everybody will be happy. It's always good to collaborate, solving the problem together. So the approaches of handling conflict: force, avoiding, compromising, accommodating, and collaborating. So when you are forcing, you want to get your way. It's not always good to get your way. Avoiding is you want to avoid having to deal with the conflict. You must deal with the conflict. Compromising, you want to reach an agreement quickly. Accommodating, you don't upset the other person. It's not always you do that. So sometimes you do it. Yes, you don't want to, but not always, so that you will not be offending yourself rather and committing sin within yourself, and you will not grow. So it's always good. The best area we advise anybody to do is to collaborate, solving the problem together. That's the only area in solving the problem together you can have a successful. You yourself will be happy, the other party will be happy. So we'll go to the next slide, slide 37. Look at selecting the right strategy. What are the right strategy you need to do? Two perspectives on negotiation. What are the two perspectives on negotiation? Look at the distributive and you look at the interactive. When you look at the distributive and interactive, you look at the area of dividing up a fixed pair, a fixed one, you divide it. Maybe because of the thing, the allocation is not there, the resources is not there, you now divide it among you now divide it among the resources, among the people. The pair size is too small, like resources, the mindsets, you not divide because it's being fixed. You divide it is not enough. So you try to do something, you distribute it, and there you'll be using all those negative areas to make sure you oppress the other one. No, but then you use that interactive, the expanding the pair. Ideas of this pair is small size. Let us find a way of expanding it. You expand it to make sure it goes round. So interactive is always very good. Your mindset should be in a way of interactive, not distributive, whereby you will not cheat the other one, the other party, when you are going into a conflict with. So it's always good you are interactive, leading to better outcome. But distributive, you are going to cheat the other person. You expand the pair because the resource center is so small. You need to share it. You need to expand it. How do you expand it? You divide it equally. Make sure that it goes around. The mindset of people going into conflict, that the pair is too small. So let us now do what? Let us, that small area, let us now break it so that we expand it, so to go around. But the other one, you are going to cheat, distribute it, because there are some areas that may not need as much as. By the time this going to distribute it, and those areas, maybe there are about 3 people, you distribute it now. Those 3 people will enjoy it. But at the area that there are 25 people, what comes about those ones? So it's not always applicable. So the interactive area of which you now do what? You now expand it to make sure it go around based on the number of people you have there. You share it within the allocation provided because the allocation is too small. So we look at the slide 38, selection factor. Selection factor. When we are talking of selection factor, we are looking at personal preference. What are the personal preference? Like some people in some areas, the ethnicity of those areas, some people are so, they believe, the ideology, as far as in that area, what they believe, like people in the ancient country, how they behave, how they associate differ from the other people in the other aspect, like the gender area, how they respect me in Yoruba land, and the female, how they respect the elderly people, they frustrate all this also. In other area, they don't. And they look at the gender area, personality area, as in the being personal, how they take things, everything goes. So while we are predisposing to one approach, no single approach is the best. It depends on how the people are operating. Effective managers use a variety of approach. It's always good to approach things in a variety way because you don't know which one is the best. But by the time you use different strategies, you be able to know the one based on the situation. And you use the right one at the right time, in spite of our ethnicity, our gender, our personality, which is a situational contribution. Why, if you know yourself very well, you can manage yourself. So these areas are they are keys. We'll go to the next one, situational consideration. This is where we get it clearer. This approach depends upon the issue importance the relationship importance, the relative power, and the time constraint. How can it be applied? How can this be applied? That is where we now bring our approach. How do we approach conflicts? The strategy we approve, and the situation depends on the situation, the issue importance, the relationship important, the relative power, the time constraint. Look at that. So the approach is how we're going to approach it with the situational area. That's what we're looking at. But we in situation whereby the issue is so important, it's already high. The issue is high. So what do we use in this area? Whereby the issue, the relationship is also low. The relative power is high, and the time constraint is medium high. So we look at being forced. You now apply the approach of being high, being forceful way of doing it. But in the situation whereby the issue is low, and the relationship is what is high, and the relative power is low, and the time constraint is medium high also. So you now use accommodating approach in approaching it. In a situation whereby the situation consideration is issue importance, and it's important. You use it's important, yes, and the relationship importance is also medium. The relative power is also equal, and the time constraint is low. In that area now, you now use what? Compromise. You now compromise. But this other area, which is the best one, which I advise everybody to use, collaborating rating. The situation is what? The situation issue, you look at the issue importance, is medium. The relationship is medium. The relative power is equal. Look at that. And the time constraint is low. There you now use compromise. In compromising something, if the issue important is high, the relationship important is high, and the relative power is low and high, the time constraint is low. So collaboration will now come on board. But the other one of avoidance, this issue, when the issue is important, is low. The relation is also low. The relative power is equal, and the time constraint is medium high. There you use the application of avoidance. But I would advise any reasonable person to always use the collaborating rating, of which the issue is important, the relative power is also important, very high, and the relative power is high, low, and the time constraint is low. So it's advisable to always use collaborating. So look at slide 40. Slide 40 now, we look at selecting the right strategy. There are two perspectives on negotiation. What are the distributive and interactive? Just like we said earlier, in the distributive, we write up a fixed pair, and also interactive, we expand it, just as I explained earlier. So go to slide 41. Is exercise. This one is exercise. For each of the three cases, read and choose the appropriate strategies. These are practical aspects. The time is not there. We can't go on this. But let us. This is a practical way whereby we divide ourselves and go into classes and see how to apply all the strategy we have said so far. So let us look at slide 42. 42, because of time constraint, let us look at slide 42, summary of what we have discussed. What are the conflict have the potential to be productive if we adapt the appropriate conflict in resolving them. Just like I said, collaborating is very, very important. So let us look at it holistically and objectively to be able to arrest that situation. So we'll go to slide 43. We look at dealing with interpersonal conflict through collaboration. On that one. And we look at slide 44, next one, collaboration, the first strategy. Yes, as I said, of all the approaches, collaboration is the best. Utilize the collaboration approach until the collaboration approach, unless condition dictates the use of an alternative approach. Except we now say, let us alternative one. That is where we now choose any of those ones. But it's always to go on collaboration. This is what the SDG have been saying, that collaboration is key. Partnership, collaborate. So it's key to anything because of the resources, because of efficiency, because of better results. It's always good to collaborate. We'll go to the next slide, slide 43. Slide 43 is also a play whereby we use those mediating, respondent, and mediator. It's also what we are going to use here in this area. Because of time factor, we cannot go there. Take turn to read a paragraph at a time. 4 phases of collaborative problem-solving notes. This is where we particularize it, and we will split ourselves into groups. Because of time factor, we will not look into this. We'll go to this next slide. Reframe for collaborative personal problem. We look at what do we look at there? The same thing also, establishing super-orient goals, separating the people from the problem, focus on interest, not position, invest options for mutual gains, use objective criteria for evaluating alternative, define success in terms of real gain, not on imaginary issue, but on real gain. Go to the next slide, slide 47, the phases. Here we go to look at the area of as an initiator, what do you do? As an initiator, the following are what you're supposed to do. That is to maintain a personal ownership of problem. You see, personal ownership of problem, you maintain it. You also do what? You describe problem in terms of behavior. Yes, we are finished on next slide. Next slide. You look at you describe problems. Fine. You describe problems in terms of behavior, consequences, and feelings. Yes. You avoid drawing conclusion, attributing motive. Persist until understood. You encourage two-way discussion. Manage the agenda by approach multiple or complex problem incrementally. So as an initiator, this is what you need to do. And there's also a case study which we need to. So having known this, you now know how to put it on case study area when we get there. For me, I take note as an initiator. These are the things you must know. And if you have any contrary opinion, you can also put it on the chat box. You maintain personal ownership of the problem. You describe the problem in terms of the behavior. Until understood, encourage to discussion, manage the agenda. Addition to put there. So we look at phase 2. We look at the social solution generation. It's always good as an initiator. You look at the solution. What are the things you need to? You focus on the that is, you share the value, the goals, the interest as the basis for requesting a change. You look at the value, you look at the goal, you look at the interest. You don't just request for a change like that one. You look at all those areas very well, and before requesting for a change as an initiator, you don't just look at because you are providing solution to things. The next slide, you look at phase 1, the problem identification. As a responder, what are you supposed to look at as a responder? The responder does the following: establish a climate for joint problem solving. Yes, as a responder, you seek additional information by asking questions. As a responder, you agree with some aspect of the complaint, not to just disagree. Some aspect you agree. So as a respondent, what are the solutions you need to do? What are those things you need to look at? In solution generation, ask for suggestion of acceptable alternatives. That is what you need to put in place, alternative. Slide 50. What are those things you need to, as a mediator, what are the roles you need to do? The following. As a mediator, what are you supposed to do? In the next slide, you establish a problem-solving framework. Yes, a problem-solving framework. You also maintain a neutral posture regarding the disputants, if not the issue. You serve as a facilitator, not a judge. You also serve as a mediator. When you are mediating, you are not a judge. If you serve as a judge, it's only God that judges. You are the facilitator. You must also put some alternatives. You manage discussion to ensure fairness. Keep the discussion focused on the issue, not on the person. So these are what you are going to mediate on, not on the person. Because if you are looking at the person, I'm telling you, you are driving away many souls from the business, and it will not be good. Look at the issue so that we will not compromise and handle the issue very well, and everybody will be happy. But when you look at the person, I'm telling you, how many people will you drive away from the business? You drive a lot of people will be going out from the business organization. Before you know, they will look at you as a mad person, as a person who is not cooperating. And before you know, you're giving you a name that is not your name. So what as a mediator, what are the things you need to look at solving this problem? Explore options by focusing on interests. Yes, the underlying needs, value, goals, concern behind the need and the position of this disputant. You create agreements on action, plan, and follow up. Make sure all the parties fully understood and support the solution agreed upon, and establish follow-up procedure as a mediator. These are the things you need to do. You mediate very well. Summary for the model of conflict management. What are the summary? The next slide, slide 53. The conflict management, the following four must be upheld. What are the four? You diagnose, you select, you implement, and the outcome. Okay, what do we mean? When we say diagnose, you look at the source of the conflict, you look at the situational consideration, just like we treated. Look at the situational consideration. When you talk of selection, look at the selection, conflict management approach. Which one are you using? Which of the approaches are you using? Implementation, just as I said, collaborative is so key, it's paramount. That is what you should use. Problem solving process, collaborative. When you look at the outcome, the dispute resolution, what have they resulted to? So these are the things you need to, as a good person who wants to make sure there is peace in an environment. So look at slide 54. In slide 54, we are going to look at the next slide, the review and the conclusion. Any clarification, any question, any contribution. And in slide 55, the next slide, write it on the chat box if you have any question, any contribution. Slide 55, we look at the session review. One new thing that you will start doing once you get back to work. What is that one? Write it on the chat box. What is that one new thing from what you have learned so far? One thing that you will stop doing as a result of this section. Write it on the chat box. One thing that you will do differently as a result of this section. Write it on the chat box. Slide 56. Did we meet the expectation? Did we meet the expectation? Write it on the chat box. If we met this expectation, I want to write it on the chat box to show that you are grateful to what you have said so far. And as you do that, God will come to bless you. So it is very important. This is so important that we should put on the chat box. By the time you put it, I'm telling you, you yourself will be empowered and you will be fulfilled. So my appreciation, thanking God and appreciating IIU and all the team for the noble occasion. IIU, the world's digital and first virtual international internship university, is the change, offering over 1,000 subjects to international students, providing mediators and guardians to all those seeking to enhance their skill, career, and enterprises. As a result of our unwavering commitment to excellency, we have grown to become the world's largest knowledge exchange community since our inception. We have dedicated core team along with robust technical support ensures that we reach learners around the globe seamlessly. To date, millions of viewers have benefited from our services, and we have awarded countless certificates to those seeking to improve their skill and career. Our success is as a result of tireless day and night efforts by our team members, supporters, and most importantly, learners. We are grateful to your unwavering support, and we promise to continue delivering exceptional education and support to our global community. IIU is the change. IIU brings the change. IIU is the revolution in the education system. Thanks you all. Thank you, all our listeners and supporters. May God continue to empower us as we keep on empowering other people. I give glory to God for our founder, Sir Advocate Piyush Pandit, who is so good, who has been so generous to us, giving us this opportunity to showcase the glory of God to the general world. May God continue to bless him and bless the trustee, bless all the core members. We thank you for also choosing IIU as the best. The closing prayer. Dear Lord, teach me to be always true and honest in my emotion, words, and action. Give me the courage to do what is right and noble in your sight, so I can be humble instrument to reflect your light. Amen. Thank you very much, my sister Amina. May God continue to strengthen you and empower you and your family. Thank you, everybody, for your love, for your patience. Thank you. I appreciate you all. May God continue to empower us as we keep on empowering other people. May the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ rest upon every one of us. May the glory of God shine upon our family, upon every one of us. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.